Hello, welcome to Scrap Time episode 698. My name is Christine, and on today's episode, I'm showing you some Just Rite Stamps with coordinating Spellbinder dies. Today I am showing you how to make this card here, and I have used the Just Rite Merry and Bright stamp set along with the Spellbinder's heirloom ornaments. This is the 2010 collection, but this also coordinates with the 2011 collection. So you can use either or. I'll show you. There we have the size of the stamps. Or the upside down? No. And then there are the dies. So I'm starting with this big stamp here. I'm going to pull it out. And this actually pops out. It's two separate stamps, so you can stamp them together, you can stamp them separately, whatever you like. I am stamping on pink paper, and the reason why I chose pink paper is I had decided on this as my background, and so I went with the colors in it. There was that little bit of pink, so I thought the pink would stand up off the background, and then I decided to do my embossing in the red and green, so it all coordinated. So I am starting with the large stamp. Here I've got a block. And I will be stamping with Versamark because I'm going to be embossing it with, and for embossing I am using the red Zing, this is like a red metallic glitter finish embossing powder from American Crafts. Just opening it on the side here so it's ready to go when it's time to emboss. So I ink up my image. Versamark ink is pretty sticky, so you don't really need to do much to ink it up, really. And we stamp it down. You just want to make sure all the detail gets stamped there. And now I'm going to take my embossing powder here. And I use little coffee filters to collect my powders. I'm just going to pour it back in 1 minute. And there you go. By giving it the tap, you get some of that excess powder off. If you have some on the side, you can just rub it with your fingers. But we're going to be cutting around it. So this is the way the image actually goes. And I'm going to emboss it now with my heat gun. Now sometimes you just need your heat gun to warm up a bit. And with this glitter powder, I find it a little bit more difficult to tell if it's been embossed. But if you keep the heat on it, you'll notice that it will start to get shinier. You'll notice it starts shining towards you in that. And so then you know it's been embossed. When you use just regular embossing powder, you can really see the difference happen. But with this glitter one, I find it to be a little bit more difficult. So I think I tend to over emboss to compensate for that, just to make sure that it's fully done. I'm just going to give it a moment to cool, and then I'm just going to test it. The thing is, when you test it, you don't want it to rub off. Yeah, it's there. And those flecks around, as I said, we're going to be cutting those out. So what I'm going to do now is take this little circle greeting. We want to make sure it's the right way. Yeah. And so these are grid blocks by Tim Holtz, and you'll notice there's all the lines on them. So what you can do is line up your words on a line. So I've taken this word here and I try to line it up on that line. So that's one way when I go to stamp it. If that line is even, then my words should be proper. So I'm going to ink it up with my Versamark again. And I'm going to stamp it in here, trying to keep that line even. Press it down. And now this time I am taking my green Zing glitter embossing powder. I should wipe the red off my spoon before putting it in my green. Yep, that you don't want to get the red in there. And then I'm putting it over top my words. And I'm just going to dump this embossing powder out. So there we have our greeting, and I'm going to emboss that now. If you have some excess green, you can just wipe it away. Maybe if you have, I have a little brush, I think. That will do the trick. You can just wipe it away off there. This is just a little makeup brush I picked up at the drugstore. So it's a good little tool for wiping away excess powder. Okay, we're going to emboss this. Okay, I think it's embossed. We'll do our little, oh, it's still a little, you want to wait till it cools because it's still that little sticky when it's wet. In the meantime, I'm going to maybe just brush some of this excess off here. Yeah. So there we have our image. So now we're ready to cut it, but I'm going to clean off my table and bring out my die cutter. So I also stamped a smaller image and embossed that one just with the red. And now it's time to cut these out. So that's where our spellbinders come in handy. So this one here, we open out the back, and I think it is this size. Yeah, and then we have this size. I'm going to put those aside. So what I like to do is I turn it over, obviously, because that's the side it's going to cut, and I match it up so you can see how nice that sort of matches together. And then I take a piece of that removable tape and I just put a little piece of tape on the die and the paper. I just folded my tape, 1 second. So we match it up, and I'm going to put a piece of tape on the die and the paper, and that just sort of holds it in place. So we'll do the same for this one. And then we put it on our base plate here with the cutting up. Put our cutting plate on, and then our grand caliber, and we're just going to put it through. So you can see what a nice job that does cutting them out. Just going to get my dies off here with the tape. So now we have our images. I did one in green earlier. So now we have our 3 little images to put on our card. So let's move this. So the next thing is I put some twine up. So I just want to show you that. What I want to do is just sort of place my ornaments where I want them. And I like to sort of scatter them in. I don't want them all to be lined up like this. You'll notice if they're lined up like this, it's a little boring. And so I try to scatter their bottoms. And I also don't like to do this where it's in a line. I find that a little boring. And so I tried this one to be a bit, this will be low, this will be a little higher, and then this one will come below. And I think that's good for that. So then you do your twine and you cut off a piece longer than you need. And this I just use a simple piece of tape, but this time I want to use more of the tape that's stickier, not the removable tape, because this is to hold it. And I put it down, and if your tape is too big, you can always cut it. If a piece is showing through, just going to fold it back. And then I'm using pop dots. Now, I like these ones here, but they're too big for this. So what I do is I just cut my stickers, or my little dimensional, so I have smaller ones to put on. That one sort of holds it in place too. I like to put one in the middle. So then when we go to place it down, we had decided around there. I'm going to take this out. And then we're going to stick it down. And then what I do on the back is I just pull that tight, turn it around, and then back here, you can use any tape for this, and I just put a piece of tape to hold it down. So that is that. And then I just want to show you how I made these little bows. I take another piece of twine, and you want a piece long enough to work with. And I do a little bunny ear bow. So I make my 2 loops, and then, oops, hold on a minute here. Maybe this is why you need a long piece of twine for this, because it can be very fidgety. Okay, so I take my 2 loops and I tie them in a knot like that. So you have a really big bow, and then what you do is you're just slowly pulling those ends to the size you want. And you just work with it until you get a nice tiny little bow. And if it gets too tiny, you just pull it the other way. I might just pull it a little, so that might, I can just pull it this way here to make it a little bigger. And I just pull this one down a little. So it's really tiny, as you can see. And then I cut off the ends. And I just take some adhesive to glue it on. Using, this is just some Scotch Quick Dry, and I put my glue on the ornament and then I stick my bow down and just give it some time to dry. And then you just repeat those steps with these two ornaments. What I like to do then is glue this one down next, the small one, and then the big one will overlap a little. You'll see here. It just overlaps those a bit more to make it look out, that it's more out. So you just repeat. We put the twine, then put on some dimensionals, and then glue it on and make your little bow. And that is a card using the Just Rite Stamps and Spellbinder Dies. Well, that's it for today's episode. Be sure to check out my website at www.scraptime.ca. And on our next episode, I'm showing you a card using alcohol inks and a stamp from La Blanche. So please join us. Thanks for watching Scrap Time.